folks, Trenton here from Alpha Kettlebell Fitness, and what we have here today is I'm going to share with you a few sequences integrating the kettlebell and the TRX and using them to create synergy amongst the movements that they both are very good at and that they help each other with. What we're going to look at in this series is the kettlebell snatch and the TRX full body extension. We've got a little bit of a twist on the TRX full body extension, but I think when done well is going to help to carry over into some areas that a lot of people have trouble with, especially initially with the kettlebell snatch. What happens when we start to teach people a lot of times with the kettlebell snatch is they don't transition the load up by creating power or force from that hip hinge. You know, men more than women, but especially men. They want to get the kettlebell here and then they want to muscle it up as such, as opposed to creating that force through here. When we use the kettlebell full body extension, and with the leveraging that it provides us in this little bit of a twist I'm going to show you today that's kind of specific to the kettlebell snatch, it allows us to start to learn that movement pattern and to learn how to access that power from the hip hinge in regards to being able to transfer that over when we get into things like that are a little bit faster with load with the kettlebell snatch. So we're learning that hip hinge, but we're also going to learn how to engage and tense or lock in our upper body. One other problem that people have besides the hip hinge when they're starting out is we kind of over pull or we're loose up top. So it's going to teach us how to engage that upper back musculature in relevance as well as the hip hinge and putting all together nice synergy. So we're going to use a TRX today and the full body extension with the twist. It's actually going to be a single arm full body extension to help kind of learn the movement patterns that are going to be really relevant to the kettlebell snatch and hopefully prepare us in a little bit slower manner when we get into these higher velocity movements with the kettlebell snatch and the load. So obviously you've probably seen something like the full body extension. This is just typical, I call it, starting from overhead, and you just are hinging back from the hips, nice straight line, and engaging up and coming back into that kind of Y position with the upper body. Great movement, but unfortunately, especially with our beginners, we're not using double kettlebells. So what I like to do is just take this from a single position. So here, we're going to hinge back still as such, but we're going to come up, still engaging the hips, but we're going to end up in that overhead single arm position. What we do with this, it's just an interesting twist from experimentation actually that I kind of found, is that when we're up in this single arm position, we're actually engaging all that posterior chain on that one side, just as if it feels very, very similar to a good finish on a kettlebell snatch. So let's take a look at a couple more of these as such, and just come up, engage the glutes, hide in, so we're locking in from that hip hinge, really steeply hinged position, arm overhead in a pretty good position, engaging that upper back, hinge back into it. The other thing that's kind of subtle on this is if we push down on the strap as we're here, it kind of allows us to have that. We don't necessarily want to saw our TRX, but it allows us to engage both sides of that upper back and then hinge back into it as such. So starts to allow us to pattern the hip hinge and to be overhead in that single or unilateral overhead movement that comes about when we go into the kettlebell snatch. So the snatch here, I want to give you kind of a contrast or look at the difference between the two things and the similarities. So snatch, I'm just going to grab as such, push back in position here. So a little more load, a little different body position, but the hip hinge and the lockout between the single arm TRX full body extension and the kettlebell snatch, as far as the teaching and creating synergy, is really relevant. So could be used as a warm-up, could be used as just something to create more stability if you find that you're not getting good stability in the overhead position, or if you have somebody that's having a hard time engaging that hip hinge. There's also a progression sequence there that you can progress from the two-handed full body extension to the single arm if you really have to kind of really progress people in a systematic way. So there you have it, the single arm TRX full body extension and the kettlebell snatch working together to create better movement. Hopefully you come back and see a couple more of our series on this sequences.